Okay, fantastic. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited to have Michelle Riklan on. She's with Kopplin, Kuebler, and Wallace. KKW is one of the leading executive search firms in the country. Michelle is going to be taking us through resume building and resume relevance, and we're delighted to have her on the program this morning. Good morning, Michelle. Thanks for being with us today.
Morning. Morning. So it's really early morning for you. Not so early for me because I'm on the East Coast, although I am going to be in your area next week. So hopefully the weather's better by you than it is by me.
Well, next week it'll be a little warm. You're going to be out in the Coachella Valley at Thunderbird, I think you had mentioned.
Yeah, I'm at Hideaway next week and at Thunderbird, so doing some work out there.
Yeah, it's the temperature's rising day by day as we creep into the summer, so you'll be in for some warm weather when you get out here.
Okay, good to know.
Well, it's all yours, Michelle.
Okay, great. So let's start off. Today we'll be talking about resumes and LinkedIn, and also throw in some other concepts on creating the personal career marketing tools that you need in order to get noticed. And first off, I'd like to just mention again, thank you for the introduction. And I'm at Kopplin, Kuebler, and Wallace, and we are the leading executive search and consulting firm in the private club industry. And we do all sorts of search and consulting work across the industry. And let me tell you a little bit about myself and my journey and how I ended up working in this crazy industry. I started off in my hospitality career, started off working in fast food at Wendy's, and that is me. I was Wendy. And started with my little wig and bloomers, and then I went to college and I started my career in human resources, where I worked for several companies, Sony and John Wiley & Sons Publishing, and some other Fortune 500 organizations. And then I started my own boutique organization where I did corporate outplacement and resume and career development. And one of my clients, whoops, went the other way, but one of my clients was the Club Management Association of America, and I worked for some other organizations such as the Association of Executive Search and Leadership Consultants. But I worked with the Club Management Association of America for over 8 years, working with their Career Services Center and attending conference every year. And my clients were mostly general managers / chief operating officers, but I also worked with directors of golf and executive chefs and all sorts of other industry professionals, and mostly working on developing their career marketing materials, their resumes and LinkedIn profiles. And that is how I, and I also coach, do career coaching at Lehigh University. But being at the CMAA for many, many years, I walked the expo floor every year and wanted to get to know many other people in the industry and the vendors. And that is how I became acquainted with Kopplin, Kuebler, and Wallace, and wanted to know how I could better serve their clients, which were also professionals within the industry, and wanted to make sure that I was providing them the right materials so that they could present their candidates. And we continually talked over the years about how we could better work together. And since my HR background included executive search and training and development and education and consulting, it just turned out to be a really good fit. And eventually I came on board almost 2 years ago. So that is where I am today. So I do multiple things with the team. And I did bring my resume writing business that I was doing at CMAA over to Kopplin, Kuebler, and Wallace. And I always like to start off by saying that the resume is just one of many career marketing tools that you have. You should always have your career marketing tools in order, because you never know when opportunity will knock. And your resume is not what gets you the job, but it is what gets your foot in the door. It is what gets you the interview. So what we want is to make sure that we have the right materials to get your foot in the door. So what we're going to cover is how to make sure that your resume markets you effectively and stands out, because it is a marketing tool. The do's, the don'ts, the extras, and how to create a hook that really compels the reader to keep reading, because you do have a very, very short window, and recruiter secrets and what they look for. It's really interesting, because I do and have over the years written for so many different industries, from finance to electrical, oil and gas. I mean, really across the board. But it's really served me well working on all different sides of the desk, so to speak, in the industry, and really getting to know and having the advantage now of knowing from the recruiter perspective, as well as from the search committee perspective, what people are looking for in their candidates and what they really want to see on those resumes, so that when I'm writing them for my clients, I really have a good understanding of what everybody is really looking for. So I have those recruiter secrets as well as the search committee secrets. So I love to be able to share that and then incorporate that into the work that I do. So what personal career marketing tools do you need? So some of the ones that we know of are the bio, the resume, and the LinkedIn profile summary. And I just want to break those down and explain the difference. So let's compare. So what is a bio? A bio is a professional bio that it's a communication piece that introduces who you are, what you do, what you offer. It's written in the third person. It's as if someone else is introducing you. So we use that for consulting. Employers use it on their websites. It's for speaking purposes. So if you're speaking and someone is introducing you, they're going to use a short bio. We use it for articles, for publicity purposes, for media purposes, for networking. So you might have a one sheet that explains who you are, and that would be your bio. Then you have your resume. It's a marketing tool. Job seekers will use it to communicate their value to an employer. A well-written resume brands you, it markets you, it sells you toward your target. You introduce yourself, but you introduce yourself in the implied first person, meaning that you don't use pronouns. So it's written such as that's a flexible leader with talent for quickly assessing situations, determining root causes, devising sound solutions, gaining buy-in from all stakeholders, and implementing positive change. So we drop the I, the we, the my, etc. We drop the pronouns. It's implied first person. Then you have your LinkedIn profile summary. And a LinkedIn profile summary is written in the first person, not the third like a bio. It's intended to be a narrative. It's conversational. It's almost as if you're inviting the person who's reading it to engage in a dialogue. So here's an example. As a hospitality executive with a non-wavering expect success philosophy, I have a can-do business acumen, and I'm 100% committed to guaranteeing best-in-class standards throughout operations with exemplary focus on member service. So you want it to be a little bit more storytelling, a little bit more as if you are speaking to the person who is reading it, because you want them to write back, or you want them to say, hey, I'd love to know more about you. Okay, but to start off, we're going to talk about the resume. So how do you ensure that the resume markets you effectively and stands out? And I say this over and over again, and I'll probably say it a few times throughout the presentation. You always want to have a resume ready. It should always be up to date. It should always be ready to go. And you just don't ever want to be in a situation, because I get this over and over again, where somebody will call me up and say, listen, I just saw a posting, or I just got approached by somebody and there's this really great opportunity. I'm perfect for it. They want my resume. They want it tomorrow. And truthfully, at least if a resume is created properly, it's not just, typing it up. It's really working with the client, making sure that we're presenting you really presenting you and doing it properly. And it takes time, and it's gathering information and making sure that you're really showcasing yourself in the best way. And that takes time. And I usually spend a good 10 to 14 days working with the client to get their resume done properly. So when somebody says, I need it tomorrow, it's just not going to be a good quality product. And I won't do it overnight. So you always want to have it ready, or at least in a place where it only needs a little bit of tweaking, or a little bit of fine tuning in order to be able to present it. So you don't want to get caught in that situation where you have to say to somebody, listen, I'd love to send you my resume, but I need a couple of weeks to put it together, because it just doesn't look good. So, all right. Anyway, how to ensure your resume markets you effectively and stands out? Well, I like to say, let's put together what I call the VIP resume. And what's a VIP resume? It has value, it has ingredients, and it has packaging. So value, what's the value? It's personally branded and it's targeted. The ingredients, that's what means that it has compelling and strategic content. And then the packaging means that it's visually appealing, and it has a good design to it. So being that you want to be in that marketing mindset, you're the product, so to speak, and the person who is reading the resume, the potential employer, is the consumer. So how you package your resume is going to be very important as well, because you don't want to look just like everybody else. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and the different philosophies about that. We'll also talk about, what's too much and what's too little, because your resume is not an autobiography. You're not going to include everything. We want to grab their attention. We want to get you in the door. We don't want to put them to sleep. So packaging, really important. So I like to say, let's imagine that you're in the supermarket and you have a small child with you, and you put them in the front of the shopping cart, and you take them down the cereal aisle and you say, pick a cereal. So what is it that they're going to pick? So usually they're going to pick something that has a lot of color to it, or a lot of bling, or a cute character, or something that's really flashy, and they'll say, ooh, let's that one. Okay. And so you take that off the shelf and you look at it and you're like, oh, this looks good. Got off the shelf. That's step one. You want to get the product off the shelf. That's what the packaging does. It gets it off the shelf. You want the resume to get off the shelf, or you want it to get out of the pile. So when you've got a pile of resumes, and somebody's sifting through them, or they're flipping through them on the computer, and they're just kind of like scrolling through, what catches the eye? If they all look like that versus this, tomato soup is tomato soup, but which tomato soup do you want? Well, maybe you pick, you pull out the one that is most visually appealing. All right, it's off the shelf. Now you're going to take a look at the ingredients. Well, we take a look over here at this one and to the left, and it's got corn syrup and niacin and cornstarch and pyrophosphate and monocalcium phosphate and all this other garbage or whatever. We say, that's not really what I was looking for. Okay, So that's your content. If the content doesn't do it for you, you're going to put it back on the shelf. So even though it may look good or it's visually appealing, if the content doesn't match what the consumer needs, it's going back on the shelf anyway. So now we look to the right. Oh, this one has kashi and buckwheat and, you know, natural flavors. Oh, that's more of what I'm looking for. Okay, great. So now we're going to keep it and we're going to hold on to it. Okay. Because we took a different one off the shelf. Then we take a look at the value. All right, well, this one is, you know, certified heart healthy, and this one lowers cholesterol, and you know, we're digging a little deeper and we're starting to understand the value of what this particular product has. All right, so now potentially we have something that we're interested in. Excuse me. So now we have something of value, and that's kind of similar to the resume process. So we want something that has value, we want something that has good content, and initially it got off the shelf or it got out of the pile because it looked interesting and we took the time to read it. So how do we make sure that it's marketing us effectively and that it is actually standing out? Well, it's got to have some key components. And those components need to have your contact information. And that may sound very simple, but I can't tell you how many times I'll get a resume and there's no phone number or there's no email. We really, really want to make this simple and easy for the person who's reading it. And I can't impress enough that the search committee that is reading this resume, they are really pressed for time, and they're volunteers mostly. And you know, as we know, many of them are, you know, volunteers and CEOs of major corporations. So, you know, when they're taking a look at a resume, we really need to spoon feed them as much information as we possibly can. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that. You know, what kind of tricks can we do in order to make it simple for them? But contact information, a header. What's a header? Who are you and how do you potentially fit into the organization? A profile, you want to introduce yourself. What are your core skills? So that's going to be core skills, basics that you have that they need. Your experience, so that's going to be more similar to your career history. How things are formatted, and then education, professional development, and you know, the additional information that we need from there. Those are key components. Contact information, what does that look like? That looks like this. So we can do this a few different ways. We don't always have to give the address, especially if you're relocating. That's not always necessary, but there are a few ways that we can present your contact information. But it needs to be legible. You don't want the font to be too small. I always recommend hyperlinking so that the person can click on your email, click on your LinkedIn. They are going to look you up, and we'll talk about LinkedIn. They are going to look you up. Make it easy for them to do so. Click on your email so that if they want to email you, they can. Phone number. Don't forget that kind of information because it's just annoying to the person who's reading it. And then your header. So who are you and how can you potentially fit into their organization? These are some examples. You can put a header and then you can put a subheader to be a little bit more clear. You can say target position. A lot of people say, well, what if I'm not the general manager yet? Or what if I'm not the assistant general manager yet? Or what if my goal is to be the golf course superintendent, but that's not who I am yet? Then I always put target position in front of it, and then put the goal. Okay. Profile. Your profile is your value proposition statement. What is it that you have that they need? And you're introducing yourself, and you're saying, you know, here's what I've got, here's what you need. Here's why you should be compelled to keep reading this resume. So often I will hear on a profile a lot of generic information. And I like to say, does the profile pass the peanuts test? And if your profile starts to sound like, you know, motivated, enthusiastic, you know, golf course superintendent, or golf professional who loves to work with members and then it's really not very effective. So does it pass the peanuts test? Or is it compelling? And somebody says, yeah, I really want to meet this person. Core skills. So this is a section that I always recommend. It's kind of like a quick cheat sheet so that the person who has the job description and the person who is looking at the resume can quickly take a look and see, here are their key strengths, and here's what we're looking for, and they've got what we need. And this section, I like to make it so we can manipulate it so that when you take a look at a specific job description, if you see that, you know, one club is looking for somebody who is really strong in one area, maybe that's what floats to the top. Or if you're applying to another club, well, maybe, you know, tournament planning, maybe that's the thing that's most important to them. So maybe we take tournament planning and we swap it out and put it in the front place. There's a few ways that we can set it up. So that was just one way that we can format it, but we could set it up like this or like this. Experience. So when we put together our experience section, there are some really key things that we want to make sure are in there. You want to describe the club or your employer. They need to know, and they want to know, where have you been? What's the size? What are the numbers? What's the revenue? What are how many rounds? Those are the things that the employer wants to know. They need to have a visual and a good understanding of where you've been. Then they want to understand, well, what was the job? So a good overview of the job itself, how you got there, were you recruited, were you recommended, were you promoted? Then, what did you achieve? What did you achieve during your time there? Not just what you did, but what did you achieve? And you want to tell a complete story in a concise manner. What are the challenges you were faced with? What are the action steps you took? What were the positive end results and the impact that it had? And when you do that, we use this little formula, the CAR, challenge, action, result. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a difference between telling it and selling it. And then the format. So like I said, how we display this or how visually appealing it is does make a difference. There's a few ways that we can do this. It can be simple. It could be a little bit more more intricate, and we have to know who we're sending it to. So there might be a very traditional club that we're sending it to, where we want to make sure the format is a little bit more conservative, or we can take, depending on where the resume is going, it could be a little bit more innovative. Education, training, etc. We always want to include that, professional development, anything that we think might be key. do's, don'ts, and extras. Do make it easy on your reader. Contact info on all pages. Make sure that, you know, if that resume gets separated and page 2 winds up somewhere else, well, make sure your info is on all the pages. Hyperlink the email, hyperlink the LinkedIn. Only one phone number. You don't want to get it confused, you know, confuse the person who's reading it, and have multiple ways to contact you. Include all and complete all the mentioned key components, a format that's easy to follow so that they can easily navigate through, and all the URLs for all the previous employers. I like to do that as well. So I hyperlink and put all the URLs so that if they want to look up a club that you've been at, or they can do that as well. And make sure to proofread over and over. Don't waste your reader's time. Don't put any fluff or, you know, information that's really not necessary, or things like, you know, old-fashioned like references available upon request. That's one of my pet peeves, because that's just a given. Of course, you're going to give them references if they ask for it. Don't lie. And if anybody's ever been through a search with us, we do a very extensive background check, and yes, people lie, and yes, they're caught, and you just don't want to put yourself in that kind of a situation. Don't develop a novel. So people always ask, you know, what's an appropriate length? If you're an experienced person and you've squished it, and that is definitely the technical term, squish. But if you squished it all onto one page and you're an experienced person, then I say if you can fit it on one page, then you haven't done very much. Generally, 90% of the resumes that I write are 2 pages. A lot of them, you know, probably the other 9% are 3 pages. 2 to 3 pages is generally appropriate for an experienced person. And the 1% is really the inexperienced straight out of school, if they haven't had any internships. And if they have had internships, then 2 pages is appropriate. And don't create a document that you can't manipulate. So if it's so, you know, crazy complicated that you can't manipulate it yourself, then it's going to cost you a lot of money, because you have to keep coming back to somebody like me to fix it for you. So make it something that you can play with. You know, you can add some color, you can use some enhancements to strengthen your message and make it interesting. And just a little note on that. Every client or every search firm is going to have their own way that they want things done. So there are definitely entities out there when they're doing a search that want to present to their client every resume in the same format. And I'm not an advocate of that, but there are places that do that. And if that is the case, then that is what you do, because that's the way that they present to their client, and or that's the way their client wants it. So I always tell the clients that I work with, you know, I will create their resume, but then at the end of the day, if they're working with a recruiter that says, you know, I want all of the resumes that I present to be, you know, Times New Roman, 2 pages, you know, 11-point font and on purple paper, if that's the way they present to their client and that's what their client is expecting, then that's what you give them. Okay, so creating a hook that compels the reader to keep reading. It's an exercise, and you have to know who you are. So you really want to think that through, and think about, you know, what is it that you offer? And, you know, I do recommend going through, and I do this with my clients, but going through that SWOT matrix. If you haven't seen this, you know, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities and what are some of your threats? And, you know, this exercise does help in order to kind of craft that value proposition statement that you can use. It's also very helpful for putting together an elevator pitch. And this is just, one sample. I'm happy to provide this in the slideshow for anybody that wants to take a look at the SWOT analysis. Yeah, and think about what will you say that's going to engage and intrigue and inspire. What are the recruiters looking for? I mentioned, they do like to be able to click and see the clubs that you've worked at. So that's a little added bonus. They do want to see those numbers, the numbers, the stats. There's several ways that you can present that. They like to see how you got somewhere. I mentioned that before. They like to, how did you get to a club? Were you recruited? Were you promoted? Were you recommended? So those are all good things to include. And the achievements that we mentioned. So now I always get the question, well, LinkedIn, do I have to have it? If I have it, do I have to have a resume? You need both. And LinkedIn is just as important as a resume. And if you are entering into a job search by chance, and even if you're not, LinkedIn is not just about job search, it's about personal branding. It's about professional development. But if you are in a job search and you don't have a LinkedIn, it's almost as if you don't exist. So, just by the numbers, there's well over 675 million members in over 200 countries on LinkedIn. It's a big deal. It's a must-have. And it's about developing strong networks. It's about networking effectively, establishing yourself as an industry expert. You can find a new position, you can be found by potential employers, but it's also about being a thought leader. So you can be commenting about things in the industry, following up on industry trends, and really creating a voice for yourself as somebody who's in the know. And it's also about, developing that network. And it's really it's not about just about who you know, but it's about who knows you. So if you know the concept of 6 degrees of separation, it's the theory. Everyone and everything is only 6 or fewer steps away by way of introduction. My life which has helped me tremendously in the search world, has always been 2 to 3 degrees of separation. And just to show you how it works, it's kind of a fun little thing. Now I am in the East Coast, and I live in New Jersey, and I live in Freehold, New Jersey. So just to show you my little fun thing. So here I am over here to the left, and here's Tom Wallace, one of our partners, and he and I are first degrees because we know each other. Now, this is over here, my crazy friend, Robin. Robin is an incredible Bruce Springsteen fan, crazy Bruce Springsteen fan. Okay, so she and I are first degrees. She doesn't know Tom, but I know Tom and I know Robin, which makes them second degrees. They are second degrees of separation. Okay, Robin, crazy Bruce Springsteen fan, Bruce goes to my gym. Robin, who's crazy Bruce Springsteen fan, knows Bruce because she harasses him at the gym. And he knows her as crazy Robin at the gym. Okay, so she is, first degrees with Bruce. So because she is first degrees with Bruce, second degrees with Tom, that makes Tom third degrees of separation with Bruce Springsteen. That's how it works. So if you don't understand how LinkedIn works with degrees of separation, because LinkedIn is all about 3 degrees of separation, now you know Bruce Springsteen goes to my gym and it's in Freehold, New Jersey. Okay, but if you aren't on LinkedIn, you don't exist, basically. At LinkedIn, it's for exchanging information, ideas, finding people, knowledge, careers, job opportunities, creating that positive online reputation, and establishing yourself as an expert in your field, and for getting found. If you complete your LinkedIn profile, and it'll tell you whether you're 100% completed or 70% completed, etc. If you're completed, then you're considered an all-star. Then you rise higher in search results. So if I'm searching for a director of golf and your profile is complete, then your profile is going to show up higher than someone else who's a director of golf who's only 70% completed. If you have a picture, most people who are searching for people will put on their preferences that they only want to see people that have pictures. So you're going to show up 21 times higher or more likely if you have a picture than if you don't. So you have to have a picture. Unlike a resume where you never have a picture. Resumes, no pictures. LinkedIn must have a picture. If you customize your URL, which is really, really simple to do, and I'm happy to send anybody who wants a LinkedIn profile guide with some of this information, but it's really simple, but this is what it looks like right here. And that also helps you to rank higher on Google and makes it easier for people to find you. It's not your resume. So your LinkedIn profile should not be a cut and paste of your resume. It's written in a different voice, and it's not intended to replace your resume. But it combines the best features of digital storytelling and your resume, and it creates a touch point or a call to action. This is just an example. Whoops, sorry, back. Okay, it allows you to convert people into connections. You like, you connect, and you follow. You can trumpet the right keywords and phrases that define who you are. Your photo, you want to use a headshot. It should be clear, show your face, present a personable and professional image. It should just have you in it. It should be welcoming, and it should be current. It's not, the picture should not be more than a headshot. It should not be unprofessional. It should not be repurposed. It's not where you show off your family or your pets. It's not Facebook. And it shouldn't be outdated. Okay, and then you have your headline. Your headline is not supposed to be your current title, although that is what the default is. So it's not supposed to say, director of golf at such and such club. It should say, professional director of golf, or, and then it should say, it can further define who you are, but the intention is to define who you are, not where you are, or not where you are. And that pretty much sums up your resume and LinkedIn. Those are two of your top personal career marketing tools. And then, there are other marketing tools that we can touch on at another time. You always want to include, when you're applying, strong cover letter. And if you are going through a search, depending on the position that you're applying for, many search firms, including us included, will also ask for a portfolio of your work. I highly recommend that if you don't have a portfolio, that's something that you also think about, because, oops, this is wrong. It's 21. It just seems like one long year. But that you have a portfolio of your work as well. So, gathering pictures and accolades and things that you've done is also a great idea. So, that's something to think about. And that's it as far as resume and LinkedIn and personal career marketing tools. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Nikki, is there, could you unmute the panelists, the attendees, if they have any questions? We'd like to open it up to Q&A at this point.
Sure will, John.
Anybody attending this morning have any questions or like to circle back on any part of Michelle's presentation?
Yeah, John, this is Tom. I have a question for Michelle.
Hi, Tom.
How you doing?
Good.
Hey, going back to your comments on the resumes and accomplishments and so on, and how far back do you go? There's also, I've heard anyway, the idea of placing in your resume using the theme of what have you done for me lately, and not include a whole bunch of other stuff from 10, 12 years ago on your resume. What's the feeling and the procedure there in your opinion?
So I don't like to eliminate anything on the resume. So because I think that where a person started and their foundation is really important, but I do truncate information. So I'll create an earlier career section that, let's say a person's career goes back 25 years. I'll break it and create an earlier career section and just list, let's say, their club and their title and their years, and put that in the earlier career and concentrate on the achievements that are more in the last 10 to 15. But then again, you also have to be aware of how, where does their career break? So if they've had, let's say, their last position they've been at for the last 10 years, then I might go into depth into the next position, because I don't only want to showcase one job. So you have to kind of look at it strategically and say, well, what makes sense depending on how many years they've been at in one place, or what do we want to show? So if they've only been in one place for a certain amount of years, then maybe we do want to go into the next position, even though it's been years prior. But I do create that earlier career section to go back, if we're going back pretty far, just to show where they've been, where they started, and where their career started and where it grew to, and show the career progression. But it's just really truncated. We don't go into the detail.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Michelle, this is a question for more of a procedure question for KKW.
Sure.
When you're involved in these executive searches for various clubs, how much of a guarantee or a responsibility does the firm take on the longevity of the recommended or suggested candidate for the position?
Say that again.
But does the firm give any kind of guarantee in terms of securing the longevity of the recommended candidate? Like they put forth a candidate and the candidate leaves after 2 months. Does that pose a problem, or is there some sort of guarantee or procedure for that to keep that from happening? Or
Yeah. So yeah, we put a guarantee on when we do a search. Generally, it's a 1-year guarantee. So if something should happen within that 1 year, then we replace the candidate.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi, Michelle. This is Carrie in Westchester County. We spoke a few weeks ago, actually.
Yes. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, nice to see you on my screen. My question is somewhat similar in topic to the gentleman who asked the first question. I've had a long career, And what I've done is I've truncated maybe the first 10 or 15 years of my experience and just given the organization name and my title. And then on my resume, on the footer of my hard copy resume, it says something along the lines of, for a more comprehensive or for a complete resume, please go to LinkedIn. And I do that to save space, so because I want to keep my resume to 2 pages. Is it okay that I encourage people to get the complete picture of me, go to LinkedIn, you can read a lot more? Or is that a turnoff? Do people really want everything on the hard copy resume?
So they're probably not going to.
Okay.
Because again, you kind of want to capture them on that paper. I mean, you certainly can put the hyperlink on the resume in the contact information, and if they want to learn more, they'll go to that hyperlink. But you can, I would recommend just putting that earlier career section and not putting the details.
Right, which is what I've done.
Right.
On hard copy. Okay.
Yeah. But if they want to learn more, if they want to learn more, they'll go to the LinkedIn anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think those might be
Yep.
all the questions this morning. Was there another one?
Oh, let's see, there's what geographic areas are active in hiring and what areas are slumping? I haven't seen slumping really. I mean, it's pretty much all over the place. And depending on the positions, I mean, we're pretty active right now. We've got if you go to our website, there's a lot going on. We're pretty busy. We're definitely pretty busy in all different areas. So we've got a handful going on in Florida. We've got a lot going. I mean, I've been pretty busy in your area, actually, your area in the San Francisco area. There's been a lot of movement. I wouldn't say that there's any specific areas that are up or down right now, but there's definitely a lot going on.
Michelle, I think that might be all the questions that we have this morning.
Okay.
On behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, we'd like to thank you for your time and coming on the Catalyst webinar this morning. There will be an email going out with the PDF version of Michelle's presentation that has her contact information on there as well.
Yeah.
Any questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to us. Once again, thank you for supporting the Catalyst webinar series. Michelle, have a great day. Thank you very much again for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure.